Dạ nghe, nghe em chị.
Chị Ngọc đang ở trung tâm học trung tâm mà nó bắt đi học viết CV rồi đó.
Dạ.
Rồi xong chị kêu chị có cái meeting cái nó cho chị nguyên cái phòng này luôn. Dễ thương dễ sợ. Chào Hà Hà gì? Hà Hà Khi Lê. Hà Khi Lê này tên của em là gì Hà? Châu Châu Tạ hay Châu Tá? Chào Danh.
Hello chị, hello mọi người. Hello mọi người.
Hoàng Anh bữa nay sao? How was today?
Mấy bữa nay trời nắng nóng mưa quá, bệnh.
Bệnh luôn hả? Hoàng Anh em đang làm việc ở tỉnh nào hay ở Hồ Chí Minh?
Em đang ở Bến Lức Long An chị.
À, là nhà ở đó luôn.
Dạ, dạ đúng rồi. Dạ.
Ừ. Kế bên
Anh
ngoài
ở
cửa
Tây
sổ
Ninh
có một
mới.
công trình, chỗ chị Ngọc ngồi ngay cửa sổ có một công trình nó hơi ồn á, mọi người có nghe ồn không?
Không, em nghe
Em
thấy
không.
chị Ngọc thôi.
Tính ra nó lọc tạp âm
Máy
tốt.
máy xịn lọc tạp âm tốt.
Đang xài cái Apple á, ghét xài Apple lắm nha. Bữa nay là bắt buộc phải xách đi á, chứ bình thường ở nhà là xài máy kia dễ xài. Windows dễ xài, cái quỷ này khó xài lắm, ghét xài lắm.
À,
The hot
em ơi,
isn't allowed sharing for this meeting. Cho em
à,
có hot đi chị Hương.
chị chưa
Ghê, tiếng Anh ghê chưa? Danh dữ dằn.
Hả? Để nha chị.
Để chị tiếng Anh dữ chứ ha. Để chị nhắn lên để chị nhắn
Em
lên
cũng bắp lắm dù.
để chị nhắn lên LinkedIn là chị vô rồi thông báo coi. Ủa, Hoàng Anh là em là admin ở bên group IAS đúng không?
Không, em là thành viên trong ban quản trị chị, chứ em không phải là admin.
À, thành viên ban quản trị luôn ghê.
Mà lúc đó anh Thắng ảnh interview, gọi em cái ảnh nói thôi tham gia với ảnh đi. Nhưng mà em cũng lúc giờ bận quá đâu có viết bài gì nhiều được. Dạ.
Ừ.
Làm chim mồi hả chị?
dạ anh là
Em
chim
làm
hay là
supply
mồi?
chain mà em qua bên đó em làm em là admin của sale luôn mới dữ chứ. Ủa làm ban quản trị của sale.
Em đâu có biết gì sao đâu.
Anh Thắng có kêu chị nữa mà chị có biết gì đâu, chị không đi, với lại chị bận bên này quá đâu có thời gian nữa.
Dạ. Mà giờ mà ở bên group đó cũng tăng lên được 1.000 rồi. Bắt đầu á là mấy anh chị sale vô viết bài cũng nhiều rồi. Dạ.
Ừ.
Đâu vậy group đó bằng follow của em rồi. Follow của em cũng mới lên được ngàn mấy.
Ừ, chị thấy chị có một cái group chat riêng với anh Thắng. Anh Thắng ảnh học từ chị cái vụ tạo group nhiều lắm nha. Mà ông cứ than hoài, nó trời ơi, group Ngọc sao mà tăng thế, group anh gì đâu mà không thấy tăng gì hết, mà nay cũng ngàn rồi đó, hơn ngàn rồi.
Dạ. Anh siêng
Sao
lắm
chị?
chị, anh đi anh mời nhiều người vô group.
Ừ. Ừ, ảnh siêng thiệt á. Chị nghe ở ngoài ồn quá, chị phải đeo đeo headphone. Rồi bạn Nguyễn Xiên. Nguyễn Xiên hay Nguyễn Xiển hay Nguyễn?
Em đang soạn email gửi mời mọi người trước khi tham dự.
Không nghe được.
Ừ.
Công nhận ồn ghê trời.
Thế mà em không nghe thấy gì cả chị Ngọc ạ. Công nhận cách âm tốt ghê á.
Electron has joined the meeting.
Alo, mọi người nghe chị không?
Có nghe rõ chị
Nghe
không?
rồi chị ơi.
Dạ, nghe chị vẫn nghe bình thường.
Good. Sorry. Hello.
Hi, I'm just checking in to see if our audio works.
It's what
Good
her
morning, Lora.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Hang on one second. Let me do a couple things.
Yeah.
Hello, good evening, everyone. How are you?
Good evening in Vietnam. Good morning, US.
Good morning, Laura. How do you feel today? Can you hear us well?
She say for her 1 minute.
Yeah, I think she was also checking.
Chị giới thiệu sơ qua thôi, Hương đi chương trình nhé Hương.
Dạ, ok chị.
Chị nói tiếng Anh không ai nghe gì mệt nữa.
Em nghe rõ mà.
Nói tiếng Việt nghe rõ đó, nói tiếng Anh và nội nghe ai nghe gì hơn. Ủa cái subtitle mình nghe đâu vậy ta? Mình thấy đâu vậy?
Trên màn hình á chị có thấy không ạ?
Thấy gì đâu? Nãy giờ có
Chị
ai thấy
không thấy,
subtitle không mọi người?
chị không thấy đúng không? Vậy thì chị có thấy cái nút CC không? Hai chữ CC á, chị bấm vô. Nếu không có sẵn hai nút CC ở ngoài, chị bấm vô more á, xong rồi chị kiếm closed caption.
Here, subtitle here.
Greetings, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We
Awesome.
call you
Thank you.
Laura, right?
Yes, I'm Laura.
Yeah, good
Good
morning. How
morning,
are you
Laura.
today?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I'm good. I have a little coffee. I came in on a late night flight last night, so hopefully we'll have a good conversation this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much for arrange time to join the webinar with VSCN.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, really, we are very happy, really happy to have you to share the insights, share the experience, and give us the inspiration and everything about the supply chain for VSCN. And many the young people, they want to know what's in the future, what they should do to become professional in the future. Yeah, a lot of questions from the people give us. So that's why we already created on the 9 questions and share the 9 questions from the people to you, and we will go through one by one in the meeting today, in the webinar today.
I look
And
forward to the dialogue.
I would like to introduce you for Vietnam Supply Chain Network. That is the supply chain group in Vietnam. I'm living in Switzerland, and I'm founder, and my co-founder is Hướng. She is also in Vietnam, but she is professor in the famous university in Vietnam, in the north of Vietnam, and she studied master in UK, and then now she is studying doctor in New Zealand. So yeah, and for my side, I have experience in supply chain almost 20 years, practical only. I didn't study master at all, but I will learn, and maybe I will study in the future too. So I hand over to my co-founder, Miss Hướng.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for being here today with us. We are really it is our honor to be able to invite you to join our webinar today. and hopefully we will have a really interesting dialogue, really interesting conversation together, so that can like inspire young generations, young managers in supply chain management field in Vietnam to like to be more confident on their choice,
Nhưng mà tại vì tôi
on their
nghĩ mãi
choice
không
to
ra chuyện
pursue
tôi lại
this
bỏ này tôi phải ra nhanh.
career. Giang ơi, can you mute some participants? Thank you. Okay, so let's start with our webinar today, because I'm sure that Miss Lora really have a lot of things that she wants to share with us today. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Vietnam Supply Chain Network Talk number 4, the future of supply chain. Tonight we have a truly special guest, someone whose name is synonymous with thought leadership in supply chain management in the world. So Lora is the founder of Supply Chain Insights, the author of the long-running Supply Chain Shaman blog, and a leader whose research and insights have shaped thinking for companies all around the world. So please join me in giving a warm Vietnamese supply chain network welcome to Miss Lora Cecere. You can just
Thank
react
you.
via the screen.
Yeah. It's my pleasure to be here. I've never been to Vietnam, but I'm committed to helping supply chain professionals around the world. So it's my pleasure. So thank you for having me.
We are really hoping to one day maybe we can invite you to Vietnam and we can show you around all of the beauties of Vietnam, and also like to have a chance to invite you to talk in person to all of the Vietnamese supply chain like passionate person. Thank you so much for being here today. So on the screen right now, you can see some background about Lora. So I just want to give a really short introduction about Lora and her career before we jump into the main part. So Lora, as I mentioned about, she is the founder of Supply Chain Insights. So she has built one of the most respected platform in our field, Supply Chain Insights. So in one of my recent posts on our LinkedIn group, I also share about her website and all of the really interesting trends that she mentioned on the website. So this is a place where you can find all of the trends, the technology information, and all of the sharing about the recent update of supply chain management. Laura is also the brilliant mind behind the Supply Chain Shaman blog, where she's been sharing in-depth commentary and research for over a decade. And Laura has over 35 years of supply chain leadership experience, including senior roles with Gartner, AMR Research, and also Altimeter Group. So Laura brings both the wisdom of experience and the sharp edge of forward thinking, and we are so lucky today to hear all of her sharing about the future, the current, and also the future chain of supply chain management. So, all right, let's get started. Right, Zhang, can you move to the next slide, please? Okay, so today our talk with Laura will be divided into 4 parts. So, pardon, Laura, do you want to? You just want to say something? Am I right? Or I can just go ahead with the talk.
Let me just give the group a little background. So
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. My bad. I should be giving some time for you to like to talk more about yourself so that we can know more about your background and also your amazing journeys. Sorry. Zhang, can you move back to the next slide, please?
Yeah.
Zhang ơi, em bật về cái trước giúp chị.
So let me give the group a little background. I'm in my 70s. I've written the blog for more than a decade. I never thought I would be a blogger. I never dreamed I'd have 345,000 people around the world follow me. It's my great honor to speak to people that read what I write. I work hard to be a better writer. And one of the things that I would share with you is, in my journey of supply chain, I find that communication skills, the ability to take complex thoughts and distill them into simplicity and to be a clear communicator is both an art and an important science for supply chain leaders. And many supply chain leaders struggle with that. And so I try to write 3,000 words a day to try to be a better writer. And I respond to anybody who sends me a LinkedIn direct message. So if people have questions, if they want to connect, I try to do that. So when you think about Laura, I started my career as a chemical engineer. I was very blessed to be able to have a co-op into manufacturing. And I first started my career with Procter and Gamble. And then I worked for multiple manufacturing companies, a company called General Foods that got bought by Kraft, Clorox, and Dreyer's Grand Ice Cream. Each of those manufacturing businesses had a different business model that I wouldn't have been able to appreciate if I hadn't gone from one company to another. It was not really in the design when I thought, what will I do when I was in college? I thought I would stay with the same company, my entire career. But, things happen in life. My husband wanted me to move, so I moved, could change jobs. Companies got acquired, mergers and acquisitions. And so one of the things that's really important, I think, in your career is to embrace change and to try to make the best of what happens in your career and not just focus on a job, but think about career in terms of characteristics of what do you want to do. So I had encountered the term supply chain about 1983. I was a manufacturing gal running plants, and I thought I'd be a plant manager and an operations manager, but I became very intrigued with the concept of supply chain when I was asked to run a warehouse and a series of warehouses for a company called Clorox. And at that point in time, we didn't have warehouse management. We didn't have a perpetual inventory signal. We didn't have RFID devices. We didn't even have computers on everybody's desk. So it was a manual system. And I was pretty proud. I thought, running a warehouse would be easy. But it was very humbling. And I, learned a lot through failure. And I give thanks that I had both manufacturing and distribution experience. When I was running a factory for Dreyer's Grand Ice Cream, which is an ice cream company that was purchased by Nestle, I became interested in production planning and actually built a macro on an Excel spreadsheet to try to plan my ice cream plant and became interested in software. And that was in 1988. And I was recruited by a company called Manugistics that got bought by JDA, which became part of Blue Yonder. And I spent a decade building software. And I didn't realize how different the world of building software was than the world of manufacturing. And I became very intrigued about what could we do with technology that can improve people's lives. And I worked 10 years building software, and then I became an industry analyst. Now, many times people will say to me, well, what do industry analysts do? And aren't they the same as a consultant? And I say, no, consultants know the answers, and industry analysts are trying to figure out the questions that people should ask. So what's happening is technology is changing much faster than we can absorb it into our practices and our development of software. And many times it's hard for business leaders to stay current with technology concepts. So one of the things that I try to do is break down the barriers to try to help people to think about technology and how work processes could be better and how that could improve the lives of teams and supply chain and the benefits of business, and to be able to help supply chain leaders around the world. One of the biggest constraints in terms of making supply chains effective is talent. What has happened is we're on our 5th generation of supply chain leaders. Supply chain was defined in 1982, and I represent baby boomers. Most of my age group has retired. Many of the next generation of supply chain pioneers have been forced into retirement through mergers and acquisitions. And we are trying to fill the gulf of directors and senior leaders without really the skill base at the time where technology is rapidly advancing, and the evolution from regional to multinational to global supply chains has become gnarly and difficult because of the pandemic and the changes and assumptions. The global supply chain was built on 3 assumptions: that trade would be frictionless, that governments would be rational, that transportation would always be available. And those 3 assumptions have been challenged, and we're getting into the redefinition of the global multinational. So I help business leaders to formulate the questions that they should ask. I'm not a consultant, I'm an analyst, and an analyst basically triangulates the market, looks at the evolution of technology, the evolution of business processes, and the evolution of talent, and tries to write insightful, inspirational content to try to help business leaders to think about how they can improve their supply chains. So that's my mission. I write in front of the firewall, and I do that because I can get reach and I think more impact. I do quantitative research studies using the people that follow me on LinkedIn, and qualitative research studies to try to put data underneath opinion. And I sit on public financials of reporting for companies of 1982 to present to be able to look at what practices and policies have people adopted that drive value and what is value. And a lot of that research is in the supply chain Stoudemire research, where we look at what is value, which we've defined as market cap per employee based upon the work with Georgia Tech, and what practices have companies deployed that improve value. And I triangulate around that and write the case studies. So with that, I've talked about what is an industry analyst, a little bit about my background. When I graduated from engineering school, I didn't know the term supply chain has evolved. I never conceived I would be a blogger. I never conceived I'd be sitting at my desk in Pennsylvania talking to lovely faces in Vietnam who think that, I'm inspirational, I'm humbled. So that's a little bit about me.
That is an incredible journey, Miss Laura, to be honest. And also I can point out many advice from that many of the young managers, young supply chain pursuers are taking into from your just short introduction about yourself and on the whole journeys. We really appreciate your appearance today with us, and we would like to like giving a really structured talk so that we can make sure that we can have a good conversation with you, and we can listen more from your sharing. So Danh Anh, next lúc chị slide nha. Our talk today will be divided into 4 parts. Some of them I can we can all take out from the sharing from Miss Laura, but maybe we can just go ahead from part to part to make sure. So we will start from her personal journey. So just Laura just went through that part to industry insight and then career guidance and also some party. But we will go dig deeper into each part and spend some moment with Laura to listen in more details of her sharing. So, like I shared with you via email before, Laura. So we will start with part one about your story inspiration. We are so curious, Laura, because you have been writing the Supply Chain Shaman blog for over a decade, and along with that, you also developed a really successful research company and also the sharing platform, Supply Chain Insight. So what has inspired you to maintain such a kind of consistency in developing a community and also like in sharing your insight? I know you mentioned about like you writing 3,000 words daily, right? I need to learn from that because now even in my doctoral research, I only maybe write maybe 1,500 per day. So maybe I should keep up onto that number. So to increase my writing ability. So do you have any thing you want to share with us? We really want to hear from you because Miss Ngọc and I has worked really hard to start this network, and we really want to hear an inspiration talk from you. So what has inspired you to maintain for so long time to developing supply chain insight into such successful platform like nowadays we have?
Well, thank you for the question. I thought long and hard about this question. It's a very good question. I sort of fell into it. I wish I had a more glamorous answer. I, in my own humble mind, want to think that I make a difference. I had seen a lot of failed implementation, had seen a lot of career stumbles, and I had really worked to create voice, both in speaking and writing when I was at Gartner Group. And when I got to Gartner, which hopefully folks on the phone know who Gartner is, I believe that I could make a difference, that my manufacturing, distribution, and software experience together could help business leaders because I don't find many people have transitioned through those roles. And I think the multiplicity of the roles help you to get clarity around how we better use technology to improve economies, the planet, and people's lives. But Gardner didn't care as much about supply chain as I did, so I left. And that was painful for me because I had great hopes that, I would be there the rest of my career. Starting a company is difficult. It's difficult on so many fronts that would take a whole hour for me to talk about. So I went to a company called AMR Research, and at AMR, I worked with about 600 different business leaders around the world. At that point in time, we were moving from regional to multinational supply chains. And, the evolution of Asian teams and the maturation of European teams fascinated me because I'm like, here is all this aspiring talent and we need global supply chains. Can I help? Gartner bought AMR and I don't believe in the Gartner model. So I'm like, well, what do I do? Do I go work for consultancy because the characteristics of a job that I like are really a lot of thinking, a lot of, forward-looking concepts. And so I started a blog and it took me about 6 weeks to publish my first blog. I was extremely frustrated. At that point in time, WordPress was quite difficult, and getting the website up and populating it at that point in time was difficult. But, I wrote when no one was reading. I continued to write. And when I left AMR, I sent all of my clients, a thank you note of thank you for being my client. This is how I'm going to continue this work if I can help you. And they linked into me. And I went from like 500 followers on LinkedIn to like 18,000. And then the more that I wrote, the more that I spoke, the more followers I got. So I feel very honored to have 340,000 followers. So that's a little bit about, me. And when I sit down, I write, I like to think that I write for the audience, that I write for somebody that has the question that I'm addressing, that I'll make a difference.
That's consistently really show your dedication to profession, Miss Laura. And to be honest, Miss Ngọc and I really feel what you just share, because I think Miss Ngọc also is also going the same way that you do. She write every day. She write like many posts every day, and she just share on LinkedIn. And to be honest, me is a little bit lazy, like on posting on LinkedIn, but sharing to many audience, and also like sharing to my students, also the same thing that I really want to do, because like you said, we are all really want to like to help others, clients, students, or maybe other people. They want to know more about supply chain management. And when we just started the Vietnam Supply Chain Network, we also have a lot of difficulties that face. We had to learn everything like building a website, like writing invitation letter to send out to all of the participants to join in our webinar, something like that. From step to step, we had to build each like brick at a time. So we really feel what you just share. Um, um, so let's move on the second part, because I'm sure that the participant today they are really want to like to listen to your sharing, because you are such a really like a wonderful writers in supply chain management, and also you have a really interesting perspective on supply chain management about the current and also the future trends. So we would just want to like to ask you a question that you can share with us. So over the past 10 years, so how have you seen the global supply chains transform? And what are the key forces do you think that have driven this change?
Well, the global supply chain evolved through three factors: improvement in connectivity, improvement in computing, and the shifts in what was possible in global trade with the opening up of the WTO. What happened in the period of 2000 to 2010, as we went from regional to multinational, people started developing global supply chains really to drive growth, growth in new economies, growth in better sourcing. And then we hit the recession in 2008, which caused us to start to rethink supply chains. And then after the recession, we started with, a foot on the gas to try to develop global supply chains and expand reach prior to the pandemic. What has happened in the last 10 years with the cloud computing, hyperscaling, the evolution of data science techniques, moving from schema on write to schema on read, the ability to use different forms of data, the ability to use streaming data, unstructured data is really quite exciting, because we have moved from managing supply chains in times of surplus, where our constraints were fewer, to managing supply chains in times of constraints. So, as we look at what's happening today in the world with shifts in tariffs, constraints in materials, the changing dynamic of climate, supply chains are shifting from a focus on functional costs to look at more holistic processes of how do we manage supply chains in times of scarcity? How do we deal with big, hairy problems like how do we feed the world in 2050 when we may not have enough land, or how do we um, manage supply chains when we're struggling with some of the materials, whether they're actives in pharmaceuticals or they're rare metals in some of our electronics. And so what's happening is redefinition of the supply chains, not just about the first two moments of truth of do people want to buy our materials and are they available, but embracing, the third and fourth moments of truth of are people delighted, and let's own the moment of truth of disposal and evolve reclamation, demanufacturing, remanufacturing, service, 3D printing, and rethink the supply chain in the time of scarcity.
Thank you so much, Miss Laura. That's really highlight all of the trends, current trends on supply chain, and also like mentioned really important thing of the supply chain management world nowadays. Like we are facing the resource scarcity problem, and also like we are dealing with the fast increasing and also the evolution of the technology, including the 3D printing and also like the cloud computing. So we are really appreciate your sharing on that. So if we're looking ahead, so what do you think, which is the emerging trends or technology do you believe that will most significantly shape the future of the supply chain management in the next decade, maybe? So we talk about AI, we talk about machine learning, but so from your perspective, so do you want to share anything about that?
I think that we're going to see the redefinition of work. I write a lot about, when I was a young professional in the 1980s. We didn't have computers on our desk, and when I went to the office, I had what was called the typing pool. I never typed a memo, never typed an email. We didn't have emails. We had a typing pool where you submitted something to be typed and you had inter-office mail. Then we had computers on our desk, and then, we were able to do a lot of amazing things around transactional processing. In the 1980s, 1990s, constraint-based theory evolved, and the world of supply chain planning evolved. And now we're really talking about supply chain dynamics, which is about flow and understanding the characteristics of flow, the granularity, the bias, the latency, the characteristics of the data stream, and being able to sense and respond on different forms of data, image data, unstructured data, streaming data. What's going to happen is how we build software will change. In today's world, we start with product requirements, we build software, and it's a long process, and we deal with a lot of maintenance, and the whole software model is built on a progression of steps. What's going to happen is we are going to move from writing software to query. What people really need to get good at is query. And the way to start that is understanding large language models and how do you query. That process of query will change software, just like search became a powerful concept in e-commerce and the web. So I would encourage people to interact with large language models and to think about how you query and watch the evolution of software because that whole business model is going to change in your lifetime. I think the whole web will change in your lifetime based upon what is happening in query. And query will become the new evolution, just like search became the evolution with the movement from Yahoo to Google. I also think that we will see the evolution of work with many new types of jobs. We'll have robot engineers and supervisors that will program robots, whether they're software robots or physical robots. It will become a whole classification. We will have ontological specialists. There's a need for rules-based ontological frameworks underneath these new forms of data science, which will require us to build data definitions, taxonomies, and linguists to be able to cross the different languages and the different concepts and the semantics of the supply chain to be able to drive powerful processes in agentic AI. We will move from the world of planning as you know it, where planners are working in silos, planning to self-service supply chains, where agentic AI will drive answers for business leaders and planners will become more orchestrators. So I tell you this to really drive home 3 points. You don't know what the career of the future is going to look like. Just like I didn't know the term supply chain or blogger when I was leaving college. You don't know what those roles are going to be. You need to be open to the outcome and constantly train yourself to be able to embrace new opportunities. Don't be fixed in believing that you can have a career path that you can plot today, because the world will emerge for you. What you need to be true to are the characteristics of the job that you want to have. So, for example, I'm a strong Myers-Briggs INFP. I'm very creative. I don't deal well with, office jobs that are routine. So I very early in my career identified a set of characteristics that I wanted to have in my career. And what I have tried to do is be open to the opportunities as they've emerged. And you will have great opportunities. Supply chain will increase in importance. The technologies are going to be astounding, and you have a lot of opportunity, but you have to be open to the opportunities and the outcomes.
That's incredibly valuable advice. Thank you so much, Miss Laura. So just let me summarize a little bit. So you suggested to take home 3 points. So the first thing you mentioned about we should open to the outcome. We should have the query skill. We should interact with large language models. And it will become really important to move from the search to the query time, right? And the second thing that you mentioned about the evolution of work. So we will have more opportunity to the new work in the future. And
Right.
the movement of self-service supply chain. So that's really touch on the next part that I want to ask for your advice today, is because we have a lot of young professionals, and we have a lot of students who are stepping into the supply chain field today, and they are really curious about maybe what skills, maybe what mindsets, or maybe what certificate or characteristic they should develop to stay relevant in such a fast changing industry like supply chain. And you also mentioned to us that in the past you also early identified a set of characteristics for yourself for the career that you want to have in the futures. So today We are so lucky to have you here, one of the big names in supply chain management in the world. So, as a young professional in supply chain management, we really want to hear your advice on what are the essential skills and mindset that we should have. So, for example, one of the most common question we get from our Vietnam supply chain network members is that they really don't know whether like they should pursue a supply chain certification either to gain a comprehensive view of supply chain management or to boost their income potential in the future maybe. So do you have any advice on the essential skills mindset or maybe the certification that they should have to equip themselves to the future work? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I would encourage people to build what I'm going to call soft skills or professional skills and also hard skills. So let's talk about both of those. So the skills around communication are so essential. And central to that is the ability to listen. The ability to listen for not what is said, but to listen for what is not said. And to be able to use yourself as a sensing mechanism to understand what the person is feeling. So I would encourage people to listen, to learn how to listen, active listening, to learn how to write, and to learn how to speak. Most supply chain professionals limit their career potential by not being able to give voice to complex concepts to influence business leaders. Don't use acronyms or supply chain jargon. Educate yourself on balance sheets and the impact of the supply chain to business performance. Don't talk about supply chain and supply chain jargon. This learn to communicate, writing skills, listening skills, and verbal skills. The second thing is hard skills. I would encourage people, because a lot of the future centers on data, to learn Python, to learn SQL, to study what AI's potential is, to understand agentic AI, to understand concepts in optimization like probabilistic optimization and neural networks and deep learning. I would spend my time there versus getting a certificate from ASCM or CSCMP to really understand data concepts. I would train myself to be able to tell stories with data, to be able to listen to what data is telling you, and to help business leaders to understand the patterns in the data. There are many classes that are available in these areas. There's a Coursera class. A lot of universities have classes online, but I would encourage people to build those hard skills. I'm doing a series now called What Would I Tell My 25-Year-Old Self, where I have senior leaders and I interview them about what skills do they think they would have, talked to their 25-year-old self to build. And almost always it centers on communication, influence, and building the hard skills around data. So let's talk about influence management. When I was a young professional, I always tried to push the envelope. I was impatient. I wanted quick answers. And my boss said to me, Laura, I want you to go draw 3 circles, concentric circles. And the center circle, I want you to put yourself. And that is your circle control. That is what you need to get really good at, which is your job. Every day when you come into work, I want you to really focus on getting to be the very best at your job. Then draw your next circle, and that is your circle of influence. I want you to build a circle of influence. I want people to want to work with you. I want you to help others. I want you to spend time cultivating relationships. So learn what matters to other people. Be helpful in meetings. Sit at the table and be helpful to the conversation. Volunteer for special jobs. Build your circle of influence. When you go to a conference, network. Now, networking was really hard for me. I'm an introvert, right? When I enter a ballroom and everybody's talking, I really don't want to go there. I would much rather sit in my hotel room and, write something or read something, right? I'm a, voracious reader. I love to read books. But he's like, I want you to go and take an opportunity in every networking session and learn how to network, active networking. I'm not a drinker. I don't drink beer or wine. I'm really into health. So, I would go and I would get my carbonated water and I would walk around and feel really awkward, right? I had to force myself to learn how to network. I never appreciated how, building community at work or building community through networking opportunities would change my career. So your second circle is the circle of influence. Your career will be better for you and whoever you work for if you get really good at your circle of control and your circle of influence. Then he said, your third circle is your circle of concern. This is what other people are doing. These are things that you have no control of, right? You may disagree with a business leader's direction. That's your circle of concern. Stay out of your circle of concern. Do not go there. Don't be judgmental. Listen for understanding. Don't judge. If you find yourself in the circle of concern, pull back into the circle of influence. Some of the best advice I've ever gotten. And I think often young supply chain professionals want to save the world. They, see things that are wrong and they want to jump right into their circle of concern. But getting really good at what you're supposed to be doing and being a good employee in an influenced manner is hard work. And sometimes people will say to me, well, Laura, you need to be a better team player. And I always say, well, what is a team? Is this a soccer team? Is this a, swimming team? Is this a track team? They all have different rules and definitions and ways to train. And people will look at me kind of, like, ooh, I wish you hadn't asked that question. But you need in your own mind to define what the structure of the team is. What are the norms and boundaries and what defines success of the team? And, how do you best work with the team? Constantly find ways for feedback about, how you're doing against those boundaries. And, I did an interview with Annette Clayton this week, who really spoke to me. And Annette Clayton is one of my mentors. And she was the chief operating officer of Schneider Electric. And she's an avid reader of the blog, which I think is just amazing. And she said to me, one of the ways that I improved my career, which I interpret as my circle of influence, is I was deliberate and always surrounding myself with diverse people. And I instantly went to age, ethnicity. And she's like, no, diversity of thought. And I consciously would interact with people with very diverse thoughts. And I would ask for feedback. And I said to Annette, well, how did you ask for feedback? Because, Laura just, blurts out, what feedback would you give me? But I loved how Annette framed how she got feedback. She says, when I'm working on a team, I will say to people, this is what I did. What would you have done? And that helps people to be more comfortable giving you feedback on that team and the circle of influence. So build your soft skills, get really good at data, telling stories with data, manage your career based upon the characteristics. You're not working a job, build a career. Does that help you?
Yeah, of course. That's really a worth remembering message. It's really straightforward but deeply impactful for maybe anyone just starting out the career in supply chain management. Thank you so much, Miss Laura. So to summarize all of the sharing from you, so you mentioned about the soft skill, you mentioned about that we should have our own hard skill set, like building upon the data analysis, and also like we have to build our careers based on the influence management. So we have communication, we have influence management, and then building hard skill around data. And I really impressive with your sharing about the three circles, circle of conscious, and the most one I'm really impressive is the circle of influence, because that refer directly to what Miss Ngọc and I are doing. We are so lucky to have you to share about your building community journeys, and also like we have all of the maybe I call sister and brother here from Vietnam Supply Chain Network, who are also passionate about supply chain management, and who are also want to share and also like study about supply chain management together. We are the first, I think, the first ever supply chain management group in Vietnam for Vietnamese person, and we are truly focused on like helping the Vietnamese professional to like to be more able to get into the supply chain management knowledge and also experience. And we are so lucky that we can invite you as the first ever the global expert to share your thought and also insightful experience and knowledge with us today. So to be honest, I will not be selfish for myself to just only myself talking to you. So I will open, maybe spend maybe 5 more minutes when maybe Miss Laura still have time with us. So anyone in our network who want to like to turn on the camera and also have a quick question to our guest speaker today? It's really a great opportunity to speak to Miss Laura. So I highly encourage people to like to turn on your camera and interact with Miss Laura.
Hi Laura.
Can I say something? Hi,
Yes.
Lora. Thank you for sharing your insights, and it's really helpful for us. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Dad, and I'm working in Diageo from the Netherlands. I'm also be a proactive team member in Vietnamese supply chain network. So, as a young professional supply chain planner, I just have a question for you in terms of like beside your working, how can you balance your life, your personal life? Because as far as I working, the the fast pace of supply chain is really intensive. I need to follow like shipment, transportation, production, uh, and like after work, I just feel like, oh, it's too much, and I couldn't get rid of my workload. From you, like how you can handle it to get rid of the supply chain, like yeah.
Thank you for your question. I love the Netherlands. I think a really important thing for you is always prioritize your health. I try to move my body every day. I swim, I walk, I take ballet, I play pickleball. You know, it's so important for you to take control of your health at your age, because if you don't have your health, then it's, all else is meaningless. But so many people that I've worked with develop really bad habits in terms of sitting long hours. So, stand, instead of having a meeting in an office, take a walk with somebody, you know, uh, try to turn off, leave work at the office. The other thing is think about how you use the time in the office and what is productive and what isn't. I did a survey on talent, and there is a strong correlation between dissatisfaction with meetings and work satisfaction. If you're spending a lot of times in unproductive meetings, uh, start to talk to your boss or your team about how do you make work more productive, because I find that we're not always having those conversations. And if you're spending a lot of time in unproductive meetings, your teammates are as well. And so, start the dialogue in your circle of influence about, I feel, um, burnout, and, how do I, make work more effective? Because your peers are probably feeling that as well. Um, Third is, get good at your job so that you can do it better. Find somebody on your team that, maybe you admire and ask them what they're doing to be better at their job. So um, those are some thoughts. Does any of that speak to you?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I see in the chat that people are talking about Eli Goldratt's book, Theory of Constraint Race. Everyone to read Eli's books, Race, the Goal, and The Theory of Constraints. Important concepts, but we're moving from a focus on transactional efficiency to supply chain physics, which the theory of constraints is all about supply chain physics, the supply chain dynamics. So I'd also encourage you to read Jay Forrester's writing from the early 1990s on the bullwhip effect and amplification and variability. So thank you, Dat, for your question. And keep Diageo making effective products.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura. I
yes.
listen you from beginning until now. I very impressive everything you share, especially about the circle, three circle, influence. That is the quickness of many people nowadays. Until now, I see, because in supply chain group, I created group and open and call on the people to writing, to sharing. But most of the people, I don't know, maybe they scared of, or they shy, or whatever reason, they keep silent. So for the networking, maybe in the future, we also organize in the offline workshop, so the people can meet together and can handshake and can talk and face to face. That may be better only online. That is strategy of Vietnam supply chain network in the future. And also here that you share about the certification. We need to study certification. We have the knowledge about the supply chain overall and something. We have, you mentioned ASCM, you mentioned CSCMP, but as I know, we have other organizations to supply very good certification of supply chain, such as ISCA or ISM, many organizations. We can select any of them to study, or you have the advice for special certification from any other organizer?
I find that all of the organizations, ISCA, Supply Chain Movement, ASCM, CSCMP, are lagging in terms of process definition and certification to what is possible. I think it's great to have gone through them, but I don't think it's sufficient. I think for future supply chain leaders, they really need to focus on learning the hard skill of data, visualization, data movement, pattern recognition, machine learning, Python, SQL. No matter what you're doing in your job, if you can't actually use data, um, you're not going to be effective. I would encourage you to listen to the podcast series that I'm doing on, what would I tell my 25-year-old self? Ben Massey, who is an incredible leader at Lenovo, talks about his journey in learning data. And when he graduated from the School of Supply Chain, he couldn't find a job, so he went and he worked in finance, and they had him do visualization of data using BI tools. And he was like, what is this? I trained to be a supply chain leader. But he says it was one of the best career moves that he's ever had because it forced him to learn how to do data visualization and to be able to speak and tell stories on the data. So storytelling on data is an important skill. We've got some hands. I love the hands.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
So, Danny Phạm, giơ tay trước. Danny Phạm, please. Danny.
Hello everyone. Hello Laura and Ngọc and Hương. Thank you for the session. I found it really insightful and interesting. Since I'm a sales professional, I just want to ask for your advice from like how should I get into the world of supply chain from a sales perspective. Yeah. Thank you.
What do you want to sell? Do you want to sell software? Do you want to sell hardware? Do you want to sell consulting?
Yeah, I'm from NIFA, Vietnam. I'm a professional packaging company. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So, there are a lot of selling methodologies. I would encourage you to read the book, The Complex Sale. Think about how decisions are made at your client and who the economic buyer is and who influences the buying decision and how do you position against that economic buyer. And follow those sales strategy techniques. When you're in an account, get really good at listening. Why do you believe that? Or, what about that makes that valuable? Use yourself as an instrument every time you go into an account. So when I go into a client of mine, I look at what they're reading. I look at, where they went to school. I'm thinking about, what's happening in their shoes. And I try to say, how can I help them be more successful by understanding what the influences are on them? And so, I guess 5 things: follow a methodology, understand the buying cycle, get really good at listening, try to understand your buyer, get good at, walking in their shoes. 4, add value, don't speak in acronyms and, jargon, be very clear in value and get really good at written communication of things like RFPs, quotations, billing, those are so important in sales. Does that help you?
Right. Thank you so much, Laura.
Have you ever read the book, The Complex Sale?
No, I haven't. But I will find it after this this call for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it
Thank you.
really talks about, the economic buyer, the influence buyer. How do you manage complex selling?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Lĩnh, Nguyễn.
Yes. Hello, Laura. I'm
Hi.
Lee. Yes.
Hi.
I want to have a question for you. So I intend to apply for an MSc in Europe next year. And as a supply chain consultant, which university do you want to recommend for me to apply? I just want to ask like your personal opinion. I know that then there are many kinds of opinions out there, but I just want to ask you. And don't worry that I just take it as a reference.
So I take from this you want a master's in supply chain. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes, supply chain and logistics. So my background is that I have been a key account manager for Jodis. So yeah, the one that based in Paris.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I want to like get further in my careers, and my ultimate like my long-term goal is to become a logistic and supply chain consultant who can work independently. So I want to apply for an MSc, even though I know that I can get the certifications for like maybe like CSCP, others. But then I think a degree for an MSc would still help me, and even a PhD if I need. So yeah, could you give me some advice?
Yes, thank you for the question. When you think about advanced degrees, think not only about the curriculum, but think about the people that you're going to meet that become part of your world and what the school's good at, and who invests with endowments, and who's going to be in the classes. So, for example, I was very, very fortunate that my boss decided that I should go to the Wharton School of Business. And when I entered the Wharton School of Business, which is the University of Pennsylvania, which is a very esteemed university, I underestimated the value that I would get from my classmates. I mean, fantastic people. And I underestimated what I would get from team projects, not in getting the project done, but getting to know other people and other points of view. So when you think about what university you're going to pick, I think you need to think about the entire experience of how they teach, and what your ability will be to really grow in your ability to understand the greater world through the experience. So, where's the university located? What languages are you comfortable with? Who sponsors the program, the professors, the people that you admire. Now personally, I like Warwick in England. I think Warwick is doing some interesting work. You may not want to be in England. Cranfield for a long time has done a lot of work in logistics, although I don't find that their program is as rich with influence management and building the kind of experience that I'm talking about. I've done some work with some of the universities in the Netherlands. Think about, how the program is constructed and what your experience will be. Does that help you?
Greatly that Cranfield and Warwick are already on my mind. So
Okay.
yeah, I would add like some more suggestions about Netherlands. How about Sweden? How about Denmark?
I've not been impressed with any of the programs in Sweden or Denmark.
Okay.
I would encourage you not to go to an OR or operations research centric school. I would encourage you not to go to a school that's only limited in one function, like logistics. So, for example, the MIT program, which is taught in London, I find to be very focused on logistics and very much lacking in a more holistic supply chain approach. I would encourage you not to do a virtual program because I think the ability to, learn with others, to work on cases with others, is so important.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Perfect question. Perfect answer. Yes.
Thank you, Linh, for your questions. That's a great question. I think many students here in Vietnam want to pursue their master degree in the world, and your advice, Laura, will help them to direct their choice in the future. Thank you so much. So I think that many of you have a lot of questions to Laura, and we will maybe we will collect all of the questions, and then we will send to Laura later when she have time. She will reply to your question because I know that the time is really precious for such a busy woman like Laura. So we thank you so much for having you here today with us. So before we close,
I can stay a couple more minutes if you need me to.
Oh, that could be great. Okay, that could be fantastic. So we have Miss V Chen. V, do you want to have a question to Miss Laura?
Yes. Thank you for thank you very much for your talk today, Laura, because it's very helpful and I think that you have a very great and very wide picture of supply chain. So I am working in supply chain as forecast of about forecasting, demand planning, supply planning, and also shipment. So my near future goal is to dive deep into the data about data analysis and also machine learning to help to improve. My goal is to improve the sales forecast for my company because probably is the forecast accuracy is quite low. It's around just 60 to 70%. And the forecast background in my company is kind of like old school. No, they collect the forecast from the market and then it's not really the forecast is really based on most are based on the experiences and quite not involved in much about the data or technology for the forecasting. So it's quite no low accuracy. So I would like to understand and dive deep into the data analysis and to see if there's anything that we can help with the forecast uh, or any technology that currently are using that are useful for this topic. Can you suggest me any resources or courses or any paper about the forecasting technique?
Hang on 1 second. I have somebody that has entered my unit. I'll be right back. I'll answer your question. How can I help you?
Change the filter. You only come back later.
You can change the filter.
Okay.
Sorry, Laura, you're mute. Yeah, sorry.
No, the mute buttons work really well. The Institute of Business Forecasting does a great job on forecasting principles. And there is a publication called Foresight that publishes case studies on forecasting. I would encourage you to learn the concepts of forecast value add and forecastability. Not all data is forecastable. And so, the sales forecast is your worst input into forecasting because of bias. So, step back and think about what is the role of the forecast and what is possible with the pattern of the data with the forecast before you move any further. So analyze the forecast for coefficient of variation to look at forecastability. Analyze if you're improving the forecast using the forecast value add methodology. Break the data into streams in terms of forecastable and not forecastable. Look at, what the model is in terms of how do you define the forecastability. So those are some thoughts.
Yeah. So actually, I work quite a lot in the topic of forecasting, and I understand that a lot of driven that can affect on the forecast that we cannot control. Most come from the policy of the company or of the country and or the market change. So that is what we cannot, a lot of things that we cannot predict. So I understand that. So a part of that, I just want to know there's still like some room for improving the forecast by data. Yeah, so that's I'm trying to learn about. Yeah.
So when you think about forecasting, go back to that circle of control, circle of influence, and circle of concern. Look at what you can control. You can understand the data, the forecastability. You can build models to improve the forecast value add. Don't focus on error. Focus on, are you improving the forecast? Get clear on the role of the forecast and how the company uses it. Influence the management team to understand the forecastability. A lot of times people will talk about error, and all forecasts have error. And what you really want to do is you want to use a lean methodology around forecast value add. And it's important that you read the methodology around forecast value add and train your teams around forecast value add and have structure around understanding what's happening in the market. Understand demand latency of what does that order represent from the channel purchase, and influence your organization to think about forecasting more holistically. Do not rush out and buy technology. Do not, focus on optimizers and engines. Focus on pattern recognition and understanding what is possible with your data. And I actually teach a class on outside-in processes, and we'll start again in October. And this is part of the class that I teach if you're interested.
Oh, yeah, I think I will be interested. Maybe you can give me the information of your class. I would be, very interested in it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I think
After
think
I get the information about the class from Lora, I will share with other people in our team in the group LinkedIn. Thank you. Thank you, Tanvi. And thank you, Lora.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we have time for a couple more questions to go.
Yeah, go to the next, Hoàng Anh.
Good morning, Ms. Laura. Thank you very much for your speaking today. So I hear a lot of information regarding to the hard skill, soft skill, and the mindset. So because during here we don't have more time with you, so I would like to get your advice on the book. Could you recommend to us some book? It's good for us to read, to have the system, like the systematic of thinking. It's good for us in the supply chain management journey in the future. Because here we are a lot of young people. Yeah, yeah. Could you recommend to us around three books? Three books.
Well, I'm biased, right? Because I've written books. So I would encourage you to read my supply chain shaman books, which really are around methodology, around what I've learned around process evolution with technology. They're free, they're available, and they're based upon, the writing and experiences I've had over the last decade. There are 12 of them. And they're on my website, and they're PDFs, and I would encourage you to read those. You must read Eli Goldratt's books, The Goal, The Race, around theory constraints. I would encourage you to read Mike Gillard's book around the forecast value add, which helps you to think about forecasting very differently. And then the rest of the books, I don't have much use for, so anyway. I also have a large language model that I publish all of the work that I've done in the last 12 years on the large language model. The large language model allows you to interface with the model in your native tongue. I would make that available for the group. I'll give you a special code that you can use, but it will allow you to query in, French or Vietnamese, and I'd actually like you to test it for me in Vietnamese to see how well it's doing. So, does that help you?
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura.
That will be really interesting to us. We
Yeah.
are really looking toward to receive your large language models book, or maybe the special code that you share with VSCN in the future. We're really looking toward
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And personally, I have one questions. I really want to ask you, Laura, because you know that when you share about the supply chain change in the future, you're talking about a lot of the change, a lot of the challenge that we are mentioning. For example, maybe the resource scarcity, forcing business to move toward the circular business model, and also we have a lot of like geopolitical issue all around the world, and it's force the business to localize the supply chain to apply the nearshoring or the friendshoring strategy for supply chain. So it's make the supply chain like restructures a lot. So from your perspective, when the supply chain restructure a lot like that, and you write a lot about the metric and also like measuring the performance of the supply chains, do you have any advice, or maybe you can you share with us any perspective on the measuring the supply chain in the new normal?
Well, I think that supply chain structures are going to continue to evolve. And I think what you have to do is manage yourself to open doors versus closed doors. So instead of saying this won't work, look at, what's the potential is. For example, the role of the planner is going to change and will become more of the role of the orchestrator. The evolution of data science concepts will become much more around natural language and less about, coding. But what's real important is what is the problem you're trying to solve and what makes a good decision. And so, if you can always be clear on what is the business problem you're trying to solve and what makes a good decision, it will go a long way. Many of the work processes that we have today don't really help us to make good decisions or to drive value. One of the interesting studies that I did was around functional cost and benchmarking, and I found that, a lot like a decay, you never want to be the lowest in a functional, you'll throw the supply chain on balance. What you want to do is basically manage functional costs so that you can have the best total cost. And you want to actually focus on margin, not necessarily on cost. And so many times people are actually driving waste and decreasing value by doing the wrong things. So get really clear on what is a good decision and what is value.
Thank you so much, Laura, for your advice on that. We have several questions in the chat box, but maybe it's over the time a little bit, right now. Or maybe you may have more time with us, Laura.
Yeah, you can ask the questions in the chat box. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question? Because I just heard that you just mentioned the word planner will be less, and this resolution of natural language will be
Right.
more focused. And what make you claim about that? Because from my current role, I think even Diageo also a good supply chain company, but we still have a lot of issues on the system in terms of planning perspective. Even when we apply a lot of technology, AI, or invest in the new system, but we still have so many issues about it.
So the role of the planner is going to move to a supply chain orchestrator. And it's going to change as we implement agentic AI. And so, think hard about what is the role of the planner. I don't know if you've ever studied the technique of RACI, of who's responsible, who's accountable, how you control, and how you inform. But think about, the definition of work as we evolve technology. But the role of the planner is going to change, and you've got to be open to evolve with it. Sort of like my analogy of the typing pool. The work is going to change.
Thank you so much, Laura. I think we have two more questions or sharing in the chat box. So the first question is from Duy Khang. So I think he's mentioning about how to clone. He asking about what if I learn about how to clone an AI agent that copy the talent of the best data analyst in the world. And he asking about your thoughts. But I'm thinking that maybe this is also the thing that you are doing, right? That building a large language models that you are building. So it's kind of similar to that, right?
Right.
So Zikan, you can just maybe follow Miss Laura on LinkedIn. She will definitely share more about her large language model project, and I'm sure your questions will be answered. So we move to the last question from Miss Linh Nguyen. So she's asking about the application of decentralized information technology like blockchain to supply chain and logistic management. So can you share some latest trend worldwide that you know about that?
Yeah, I used to do a group called the Network of Networks, which was focused on the fact that none of our networks drive interoperability. Our networks are sort of like cell phones used to be. I used to carry 3 and 4 cell phones when I traveled globally because T-Mobile didn't interoperate with Verizon or AT&T. But our networks are very similar. So I was hopeful that blockchain would become a distributed network for us, but it has not. It's not scalable. So I think cryptocurrency may influence payment, but I think blockchain is not going to be a great enabler of supply chain value networks. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laura, for being here with us today. Because this is such a special occasion, we would love to have a picture with you or a photo with you. Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much. So please, everyone, can you turn on your camera for just a minute so we can take a group photo with Laura? It doesn't matter that you are in your office, maybe at home, or even in your pajamas. So you are part of our events, and we would love to see your smile. So please turn on your camera and have a moment to take a photo with Laura. Laura, you can see a lot of heart icons sending through the screen to you from Vietnam to America to you.
Thank you.
Okay, big smile, everyone. Zhang, can you help me to take a picture? Can you count so that we know when should we smile? A big smile.
Thank you for the hearts.
Bên em không có mở được cái chế độ
Zhang, are
Có
you
bạn nào
taking a picture?
bên em không có mở được cái chế độ mà chị chỉ em đâu.
Nói
I
sao?
already checked, chị Hương. It's
Em
okay.
có thể tắt share màn hình đi giúp chị nhé, xong để chị chụp cho. Can you stay with us for a minute more, Laura?
But Laura, in the future, VSCN you will operate the
Can you see
offline
it?
meeting in city. We will invite you to visit Vietnam maybe early next year. Can you? And will you?
Maybe, uh, we'll see,
I will give you the plan at least 3 months before or 6 months before. That's it good.
Okay. Okay. All right. We'll see.
And then we
Yeah.
will show you around Vietnam. Very nice country, very nice people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So before we close, a quick heads up about our next event. So VSCN webinar number 3 will focus on global integration and the demand for supply chain talent in Vietnam. So we've lined up our 4 fantastic speakers from both multinational corporation and also Vietnam own supply chain talent scene. So please mark your calendars. And our final word is that on behalf of the Vietnam Supply Chain Network, more than 4,000 members, we would like to thank Ms. Lora Cecere for sharing your fantastic experience, your inspiring journey with us tonight. And thank you to all of you for joining us and making this event possible. So let's stay connected, scan the QR code, follow us on LinkedIn, and we will continue the conversation in the futures. Thank you so much and see you at our next event. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Laura. Thank you.
Everyone.
It's our honor to have you here today. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Miss Lora so
Have a
much.
good day, guys.
Chúc
Thank you.
Have a
Cảm
good
ơn
day,
chị
Laura.
Ngọc, cảm ơn Hương.
Dạ, cảm ơn mọi người ạ.
Cảm ơn mọi người.
Rồi,
Dạ,
cảm ơn
mình
mọi
sẽ
người.
kết end meeting ạ. Dạ, chào mọi người.